You mentioned like working with somebody. When you do collaborations, um, and you're in the studio with somebody, do they ever look over at you when you're doing your Rain Man and they're sitting there like, when's he gonna finish? Like, because I remember Biggie in the book Unbelievable, DJ Premier was sitting there looking like Biggie was running up the studio bill, like he just drinking, and he had no idea how long it was gonna take because he was unfamiliar with the process because
Right.
he's not there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, for you, like when you do collaborations, does it work different? Like, do you feel like you have to shortcut Rain Man a little bit because people are waiting, or?
Well, nah, it don't really happen like that. For the most part, most collaborations happen after the song is done, like after I've done my part, especially on my side.
Yeah.
On my side, or either way, it happens like that. You do a song and then you find someone's own. Like you don't
Right.
really think I'm gonna collaborate with MCXY, before you make the song. You make
Right.
the song and you say, wow, that song sounds
Would be
great.
good for-
Maybe if we get this person on it, and it goes like that, or vice versa. They usually have their verse on there, and then you do your verse. So it's very seldom that you sit at a console and collaborate with somebody. Last time I really remember doing that, I'm sure I've done it before, but the last monumental time was with me and Big. That was the greatest moment, of all of that type of thing,
Right,
because
right.
we both sat at the console, and I'm trying to think my lyrics or whatever, and I passed him the paper, and he was
Right.
like, nah, I'm cool. That was the first time I realized that someone else did that type of thing. I never heard of that.
Yeah.
You gotta remember this is '96.
Obviously, you and Nas collaborating again was a big thing. How was the approach different for Black Republican as opposed to Success for you and Nas?
Well, Black Republican, we knew we would do. It was just a question. I really didn't do Black Republican for it to be a song, to be perfectly honest with you. Like the first time we've been in the studio together, and I just went in there to do, to set the mood of,
the intro.
Get
Yeah.
everything started, like this is what we're going to do. But then he kept the song, when you keep a song, you start falling in love with it. I'm like, yo, I'm telling you, we got to do a record. Let's do a different record. I mean, that song is great. I mean, I like it, but let's do it again. But he fell in love with the record, so we never cut another record. So the difference between the Black Republican and Success is that Success wasn't supposed to be a collaboration. He was just in the studio one day. I was just playing a bunch of records, and he was just vibing with the records. When that came on, he loved it so much. I was like, take it,
Yeah.
do something. He was like, it just happened. It was just one of those things that just happened. Whereas in Black Republican, it was, set up that we was going to do a record.
As far as like producers, like of course Rick Rubin, Timbaland, the Neptunes, you've worked with some of the best, but then you've worked with like the Buchanans and some people who are not as known. Is there any producers that you haven't worked with that you're interested in working with?
Wow. Man. Or with Dre, Rick Rubin. I mean, it would have to be somebody new. I pretty much work with everybody that's, that's established. This is another genre. I love that as well. Different genres of producers. They bring different energy. They bring, it's not a thought out knowledge of this should sound like this. This should be the club song, gangster song, it's just. New energy. I think that's why the Rick song came out so great. I think it was just a great record for being a great record. I don't think it was a great hip hop record. I don't think it was a rock record. I don't think it was a mashup of hip hop and rock. It was just making music for the sake of making it a great song.
Yeah. We had heard that Rick Rubin was particularly like one of the hardest producers you ever worked with.
It wasn't difficult. It was just he said something. 'Cause I pretty much produce the records I make. People make tracks, and then I do choruses and, put some strings in there, and, I pretty much produce as well. But the idea is the producers. I'm not taking anything away from the producer. I'm just saying I pretty much produce as well.
Yeah.
I don't just go in the booth and rap. And, I was produced by Rick Rubin. He told me the verse. He was like, man, I don't know about that second one. And I was like, it was shocking. I was like, oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Premier probably did that early on, though. Probably on Reasonable Doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, like reading about Rick Rubin, he won't be so like detail specific and say like, well, it's not that line, but he'll just describe it in like, well, the energy of that wasn't right.
You have to top that last verse.
It walks away.
I'm like, top it how? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's yeah, energy, the flow, the words, what I'm talking about. No,
Right.
it was just, that was it. You know, that was it.